So I'm going to talk about how to make a diagnosis and manage physeal bars. So physeal bars by definition is a bony or fibrous bridge crossing the groove plate. It's usually the result of injury to the reserve zone of the groove plate. So as mentioned before, the physeal bar actually occurs in around 1 to 10% of all physeal fractures. And it can actually follows any types of Soto-Harris physeal fractures. It's more commonly seen in lower limb physeal fractures, in particular around the knee and distal tibia, because of their association with a high energy trauma. The other causes of a physeal bar also include infections, tumor, irradiation, ischemia, and it can also be iatrogenic, with implants of smooth pin or wire screws passing through the physis during fracture fixation. So the physeal bars can usually form within a few months after physeal fractures, but the timing of bone formation is less predictable with infective cause. And that's why we have to follow up for a longer period of time before discharging those patients suffering from infections. And for irradiations, it can take months or years to happen. So the physeal bar is classified according to its location. It could be peripheral, which usually will result in significant angulations. And it could also be linear, with the physeal bar crossing the whole physis from anterior to posterior border, with a normal physis on each side of the physeal bar. It can also be central, with a normal physis surrounding the physis. If it's really in the center, it causes leg length discrepancy, but it can also be eccentric, resulting in angulation and shortening. So a sclerotic bone bridge in the X-ray confirms the diagnosis. Okay. However, with the presence of an asymmetry of the Harris line, could be the earliest sign for radiological bone bar. The Harris line forms at the location of the physis at the time of injury, presumably due to temporary cessation of growth secondary to the physeal trauma. The interval between the Harris line and the physis indicates the amount of growth since injury. If the growth is normal, the Harris line should be parallel to the physis. And this is a very beautiful X-ray showing the convergence of the Harris line and the physis posteriorly at the knee joint. And this could be the earliest indication of the presence of a developing physeal bar. Tenting is very specific to central physeal bar due to the tethering effect of the physis. And commonly they present with a significant leg length discrepancy. Angulation actually is the result of a peripheral bar. And this is an example of a linear bar. You see a lot of shortening, but you don't see any tenting. And in the lateral X-ray, you see that the ankle joint actually angulate anteriorly due to the asymmetrical involvement of the linear bar, more severe on the anterior part. If surgery is contemplated, further imaging with MRI or CT is needed. Okay, mapping actually allows more precise measurements of the size of the physis, as well as localization of the physis of the physeal bar in the affected physis. MRI is a preferred choice compared to CT because with this special sequence, it gives you the best quality of a physeal image and mapping. And the MRI also allows earlier detection of the fibrous bar, as well as the fact that there is no radiation, which is an advantage for children. The aim of treatment is to restore the potential for growth and to mitigate the deformity resulting from the growth arrest. And the surgical options include physeal bar excision plus other additional procedures to correct the deformity. The other surgical options include epiphysiodesis and osteotomy. In the interest of time, I'll focus on the physeal bar excision. So the mere presence of a physeal bar is not an indication for excisions. The physeal bar is indicated for excision only when there is evidence of a growth disturbance with existing or developing deformity. The physeal bar is indicated for excision if it's less than 50% of size. Excision of a larger physeal bar usually results in recurrence of bone bar formations. And the patient should have at least 2 years of remaining growth. And if the physeal bar is secondary to an infective cause, the area should be free of drainage for at least 1 year. So the principle of a physeal bar excision actually is to achieve a complete removal of the bone bar with minimal damage to the normal surrounding tissues. And the classical procedure is described by Langen-Skiois in 1967. Okay, the physeal bar is removed with a high-speed bird through a cortical window and tunnel. The exposure is pretty limited, and many a times you need a dental mirror to help to assess the completions of whether the excision is complete or not. And the cavity is filled up with interposition material to prevent the recurrence of the bone bar. Many different types of interposition materials has been described in the literatures, and adipose tissues and bone cements are the most commonly used nowadays. I'm sure that Professor Hui will actually enlighten us on the future research on the possibility of a regeneration of the growth plate. And this is a case example. 5-year-old boy with a central physeal bar. The exact cause is unknown. He presented with a ligament discrepancy of 2.5 centimeter. So a Langen-Skiois procedure was performed with a bone window over here, and the bar was removed. So the leg length discrepancy remains static, okay, 20 months after the initial surgery. And you can see the gradual reduction of the tenting. But after 4 years, at post-op 4 years, the leg length discrepancy was found to progress to 4 centimeters. And if you look at the X-ray, despite the reduction of the tendons, you can see some sclerosis around the previous operator site. And CT scan actually confirms the reformations of the bone bar. So a repeated Langen-Skiois procedure was performed at the age of 9 with a leg length discrepancy of 4 centimeters. And the final leg length discrepancy at skeletal maturity is 4.5 centimeters. So if you look at the position of the screw, it shows steady growth away from the physis. And the patient eventually opted for femoral lengthening instead of epiphysiodesis. Well, having to remove the whole physeal bar with minimal damage to the surrounding soft tissue is actually quite challenging and demanding. And this is largely due to the fact that the exposure is very limited with poor illuminations. So nowadays people will try to use an arthroscope with the inherent light source as well, or using a headlight with coaxial light source that will actually improve the illuminations. Dental mirrors and arthroscope actually helps to improve the visualization for assessments of whether the bone bar is excised completely. Navigations or patient-specific guides has also been reported in the literatures, trying to improve the precisions of removal of the physeal bar. But if you're short of all this high-tech stuff, the Jackson's modification could be useful. So instead of using a cortical window with bone tunnels, pre-drilled, tapped metaphyseal wedge is removed somewhere around 0.5 to 1 centimeter from the physis. And that will give you a very beautiful direct approach to the physeal bar. Spontaneous corrections after the physeal bar resection is actually quite unpredictable. And that's why a concomitant osteotomy or growth modulation is recommended if the angulation is more than 20 degrees at the time of surgery. And with an osteotomy, it also has an additional advantage that the exposure is largely improved. So this is another case, 14-month-old girl with history of right knee septic arthritis, treated with drainage and IV antibiotic in the other hospital. The patient was referred to me at age of 14 months with 27 degrees of genuine valgum and shortening of 2 centimeters. So MRI confirms a central but eccentric physeal bar, and that explains the shortening and the angulations. So the easiest way is to to correct the deformity with a closing wedge and then go for the physeal bar excision. But this will actually further shorten the femur. So we go for this wire-shaped osteotomy and then try to put this medial wedge to the lateral side for correction of deformity without any shortening. So this is after the osteotomy, showing the osteotomy end on the distal femur. And with a retraction of the proximal fragments, the physeal bar can be approached directly. So a curette is used to actually remove the cancellous bone covering the physeal bar. And the physeal bar is removed with a high-speed bird. And continuous irrigation is very important to lower the temperature because the heat generated from the bird can actually damage the normal physeal cartilage. So this is a picture trying to show you the whitish structures here. That is the normal physeal cartilage. I have to put a forceps here because the camera would not focus on this dark hole without this forceps. And this is an adipose graft from the buttock, okay, that would actually fill up the cavities. And that is the medial wedge actually put in the lateral side that helps to correct the deformity. And the osteotomy is fixed with a cross wire. And you see that there are 2 vascular clips trying to, that helps to monitor the growth after the surgery. So this is post-op 5 months LLD remains at 2 centimeters, 1.5 years after surgery, still with significant shortening. And you are seeing some catching up of the ligament discrepancy. You can see that the distance of the 2 vascular clips is increasing accordingly. And post-op 5 years, and this is post-op 9 years with a residual shortening of 1.2 centimeters. For the peripheral physeal bar, it's surgically less demanding. It can be approached directly, but the key point is that you have to excise the bone bar together with the overlying periosteum. And the closure of the periosteum actually will result in reformations of the bone bar, and the gap should be filled up with any interposition graft. Complication of the procedures. Physeal bar reformation occurs in around 18% of cases. And many of the time they are due to the displacement of the interposition graft. Infection occurs in 3%, and usually they happen in cases resulting from previous infections. Resumption of around 84% of growth of the normal side is expected after a successful excision of the physeal bar. 13% of cases do not need further surgery, while the rest need further surgery because of the residual ligament discrepancy or deformity. Good prognosis are seen in patients who have smaller physeal bar, in particular, less than 25%, in younger patients, and in those patients who are picked up early after the injury and with a treatment offered early. And physeal bar secondary to trauma actually behave or recover much better compared with those resulting from infections. So epiphyseal in general, they are indicated for cases that is not suitable for physeal bar resection. So for those with a central bar resulting in resulting in ligament discrepancy, contralateral limb epiphyseal would be a good procedure if the projected LLD at skeletal maturity is more than 2 or less than 5 centimeters. With a patient with peripheral bar, ipsilateral epiphyseal will actually helps to reduce or the severity or the progression of the deformity. And contralateral limb epiphyseal actually will reduce the ligament discrepancy at skeletal maturity. Osteotomy for acute corrections or lengthening are indicated in patients who has severe deformity and near skeletal maturity. So in summary, Early recognition of the physeal arrest allows timely and effective management. And surgical intervention depends on the size of the physeal bar, the growth potential remaining, and the existing or anticipated deformity. Thank you for your attention.